Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to do some canning today. We are following a National Center for Home Food Preservation recipe, approved recipe, no shortcuts or crazy stuff here. We're going to can chili. Doesn't that look good? And what we did is the recipe calls for 3 pounds of ground beef, 3 cooked cups of beans. We used a combination of pinto beans and white beans. A cup and a half of onion. We added some onion. We like onion around here. And then 2 quarts of tomato sauce. There's also various spices in here, from chili powder to garlic. We added some salt and pepper. We wanted it cooked to taste. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start filling my jars. And I'm going to move the jar to the back. The chili's hot. I have hot water in my canner, and I'm using a Presto digital electric pressure canner today. And we're just going to fill all the jars, get those lids wiped, and then we'll show you how to get this all set up. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're following the guidelines for headspace from the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and it says to fill it to just below, to 1 inch headspace, so it's just below the ring of the jar. And I'm moving them to the back as I fill them so that I don't spill on the outside of the jars. My spatula here is about a half a cup. I'm trying to make sure I get a mixture of both solids and liquid in here. That's actually a little bit much. Let me get a spoon and remove that. Okay, I got a little bit much in this jar, so I'm just taking some out, moving it into another jar. I want to stay under that ring, and then I have a bowl over here with hot water in it, so I'll set my spoon in there. And then I'm going to refill my ladle. It holds about a half a cup. And I'm trying to make sure I get a combination of solid and liquid in here for this chili. Nice thick chili. We did not add any thickener to this because the recipe says not to. Let me move that. I am way too generous on my jars today. Easy fix, just move over a little bit so that your jar is right, and keep going. Let's bring this one in here since I've got some in it. There's a little guide here that you can look at so you don't overfill your jars. And I'm just going to keep filling them, and I'll bring you back when they're all full. Okay, so now I've got about a quarter cup of vinegar. I'm going to pour it into my canner to help keep hot water spots off of my jars. But before I do that, I'm going to use that vinegar to wipe around the rims of all of my jars and make sure there's no food spilled or any grease that could keep it from sealing. I'm also looking for chips in the edges of my jars. If a jar has a chip, I will replace it with another jar because it won't seal. Okay, so, whoops, that's done. Now I'm going to pour the vinegar into my canner. Just leave it in the canning water. And now that all of the jars are cleaned, I'm going to put lids on them all and then put rings on. I thought I had enough big lids. 6 for big lids.
Right, why not? Here we go.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm putting lids on all my jars. Had to go find some lids, sorry. And all I've done with them is dipped them in hot water. They don't have to be boiled, but I still like to put a little hot water on there. And to put your lid on, you just set the ring on. To put your ring on, you just set it on and do it finger tight. And then I'm going to set them directly into the canner. You're not wrenching down on these. Just finger tight is fine. If you get them too tight, your jar might explode. Too loose and your lid will come off. So you want to pay attention, but it's not critical. I reuse rings all the time. This ring looks pretty bad, but it's still round and it still goes on no problem. And we have more jars than our canner will hold today. That's fine. We'll run a second batch. There's still chili left in the pot. I'm going to put rings on these two and set them aside until we're ready for the next batch. So I'll just set them on the back of my stove. And then let's move the towel out of the way. And I'm going to slide the canner over so it's in camera range for you. And then let's set this baby up. I'm going to put the plug in it. I always plug into the canner first and then into my wall. This is a heavy duty appliance, so it can definitely draw some power. The first thing you see here, can you see that? So now that all my jars are in the pressure canner and I have attached the cord to the pressure canner and plugged it in, it's now flashing pressure can. I hope you can read that. I'm going to push the button once and then I'm going to set the time. The recipe that I'm using from the National Center for Home Food Preservation says 75 minutes for pints. You cannot can chili in quarts. I'm going to put my lid on this pressure canner and lock it. It says locked right here. And then I'm going to put the green handle down and I'm going to push the arrow. It says insert jars, which I've already done. Now it's going to warm the jars up. The way this is supposed to work is that you're supposed to put the empty jars in and heat them up. But I already washed them in hot water and kept them in hot water until I was ready to fill them. So I'm going to go ahead and let it warm up. It doesn't give you any other option. And it will beep at me once the jars are warm. When it beeps, I will bring you back. Okay, so the pressure canner just beeped at me. Now it says fill jars. I'm hoping you can read that. I remind you, you need to take this off of the pressure canner before you set it to warm up. It took longer because I forgot to take it off. So I'm going to tell it that I have filled the jars. And now it's going to vent for 10 minutes. You still leave the regulator off of the pressure canner. And it's going to vent steam here at the back. In 10 minutes, it will beep again at me to tell me to go ahead and move to the next stage. Okay, so it's beeping. Can you hear it? It's telling me put the regulator on. This is the regulator. I'm going to put it on. And I'm going to grab this towel. And I'm going to use the towel to put it on. It goes back here behind. And you put it on here. I just kind of wiggle it down on. And then I make sure that it is turned to can. Once I do that, I press the button. It brings back up the 75 minutes that I programmed in initially. And now it's going to can my stuff for 75 minutes. I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done and cooled down. That sound meant that the canner is now done and it has gone into cooling mode. We don't have to do anything at this point in time. We're just going to wait for it to cool down. It'll probably take it 30 to 45 minutes to do that. Don't touch your canner when it's cooling down. And all you do now is you just wait. I'll bring you back when the jars come out of the canner. The pressure canner now says it's done. It beeped 10 times to let me know it was cooled down enough to open it. So I'm going to undo the green. So I've undone this green handle, and I'm going to lift that up, and then I'm going to turn the lid of the pressure canner. Lift it, and make sure you lift it away from your face. You don't want a steam facial. And this has cooled down long enough for me to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and start removing my jars from the canner. This is a jar lifter. You're going to bring your jars up straight, and you're going to set them down. And I'm setting mine on a wooden cutting board, because once I get them all out, I want to be able to push that cutting board towards the back of the counter and put a towel over it. I'm not setting the jars so they touch. Doesn't that look good? Now remember, this recipe is approved by the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Okay. Do you want me to bring it closer? And here's the last jar in our canner. We got 7 pint jars in here. Yummy, yummy, yummy. I'm going to push this cutting board towards the back of the counter because there's not enough room on there for the 7th one. Set it on the counter. And then I'm going to take any kitchen towel and I'm going to lay it over the top just to keep the air off the jars. Now, I'm going to do another round of pressure canning with the rest of the chili that we had, but I'm going to let this cool down a little bit before we get ready to start to do the next round. But that's one complete round, and we now have 7 jars of chili canned up using a safe approved recipe.